Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the crazy situation. It's Frantz Kantor here, cartoonist, illustrator, toon talker, teacher, trainer, tinker, tailor, spy. I'm here again at the Australian Cartoon Museum during lockdown, doing some work here. And I am doing a caricature of this guy. This is Larry David, one of the writers, or the principal writer for Seinfeld. And of course he has his own show, which is Curb Your Enthusiasm. Very interesting, very funny show, very funny guy. And we're going to try and do him. I'm going to try and work from... I've had some difficulty trying to find a face and expression. He's got a lot of expressions, right? He's very expressive. His face is, just speaks volumes about the way he feels and thinks. He's an incredibly articulate and lives a lot in his head. So there's a lot going on and a lot of. I mean, he's a performer as well. He's a stand-up comedian, but he mainly writes, and he does perform now, of course, in the Larry David in Curb Your Enthusiasm. So he's got a very interesting face and a range, quite a cool range of expressions to play with. This is the photograph, which is a weird, beautifully lit photograph from his Twitter feed. So Curb Your Enthusiasm is a series that's been going on, I think it's up to 10 or 11 seasons. So it's been going on since 2000. So it's a long time. He has it's a very funny show. It's obviously based on a lot of observational humor, skits and situation comedy, and quite confronting in many respects as well. So situation comedy works by virtue of the fact that we empathize with, the observation, with the situation or the observation that they're making in the sketch, and we find that funny because it's something either so familiar to us that we've ignored it, or else it's something we haven't really thought about from a certain angle. So that's the power of it. We'll go into a little bit more about, his depth of comedy as we go into the drawing. So as I said to you before, I was going to work from this photograph, which is very sort of amiable. Of note is his cocky smile, the sort of sideways. It's a sort of a... Whenever you have something where the canine, if it's a smirky sort of a side smile like this and the canine's exposed, it just gives you a feeling of a very cocky sense of humor. Somebody that incredibly, is the guy that sits at the back of the class making the smirky comments and things, So that's a really interesting thing that I found in him. So I was looking at something that resembles I guess that would be a chip or a plectrum or something, sort of like this sort of a D, as a basic shape structure to work from. And from that I'm going to sort of exaggerate, the proportions to fit within that premise of the new shape, and try to get a sort of a likeness. So the likeness is based on, the areas of the face, facial features. So inside the face itself are these little features, the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. And that's where you concentrate all of your effort in getting all the details right, and the angles of the lines, and the micro expressions, and anything else, wrinkles, whatever, little details that you can build in there as a sort of an ongoing dialogue, conversation. So it's like drawing a map, right? So you've got the overall map of the continent, which is the head, and then you've got the, the rivers and the mountains and the features inside the map, which are telling you the particular details about the landforms, about the map itself. Okay, so we're looking at that, and I actually found a better expression, which is this one. I kind of like that because of the eyebrows that are up. A lot of his humor is based on questioning authority or questioning social mores or questioning things that we take for granted, right? Cues, whatever it is, misinterpretation, a lot of things that are based on hurt feelings or quirky figures of speech, or it's just a whole range of things that sort of we exist in this social bubble, and he has the ability to, with observational humor, look at these situations from different angles and find something to comment on in a sketch, and that's why it's funny. So, based on this photograph here, with that expression, I kind of like that expression. I kind of came up with that variation. So it's the same angle and everything, but I just sort of changed the expression. So that's why you can see a lot of rubbing out lines over here, because I changed the idea a little bit as I went. Okay, so let's go. Let's continue. Push on. Right. So looking at the light and shade variations, it's a beautifully lit photograph, very evenly lit. So there's not a lot of shadows to comment on, but we are concerned with certain aspects, the bumps, the furrows, the valleys and mountains of the landscape of the face. So that's something that we have to contend with. We've got to keep that in mind, what they mean, how they're going to be lit to best exemplify what they are and what they say in the actual caricature. So let's continue on. Right, so we've got some things, areas of play here. One of them, of course, is these beautiful arching eyebrows, which form question marks. I've often thought that the picture of a question mark, which is this, right, comes from this, which is a raised, it's an arched eyebrow, right? So the eyebrows arch in the middle and they form a question mark. So you've got two question marks there. So it's a questioning effect, a look, which is interesting to think about, isn't it? Because the narrative of a face, the story of a face, is built up of a whole range of elements, and the elements compound, they layer one on top of the other. So there's quite a few things to consider here. So we're going to have a bit of fun with the line work, because there's very little shading as such in here. So we're going to have some fun with just concentrating on the contours. Now, I hate counting wrinkles. It's difficult to, use both sides of your brain at the same time. So I'd rather just concentrate on the overall impression of the shapes rather than the number of wrinkles themselves, if I can. So I'm making an excuse here. You can feel it. I'm making an excuse that I might get the number of wrinkles wrong. There you go. I'm sure I'll get the approximate number right. So there's lots of wrinkles in his head, in his scalp. This is quite tight skin on top of the head. And it's also tight on the cheekbones. They're quite close to the skin usually. So whenever you draw the face, whether it be portrait or caricature, it's always a good idea, even though you don't see it, refer to the cheekbones themselves, which I've done here, right? Because it lends itself more believability, more relevance, more truth, I guess, in many ways as to what the details are, what the details should be, even if they're not featured in a very strong way. So a few features, you know, the bald head, the top, the pate, which kind of is beautifully accented by these long Stravinsky type of hair, this sort of very long, crazy genius hair that tufts out of his head. What it does is it gives you an impression of brain power. You know, the brain is so powerful that no hair can grow on here. It's like the opposite of someone who's. It's the opposite of a. Trying to look for the word. Sort of a hairy galoot. So it's the opposite of a hairy galoot. Okay, so if somebody looks silly or less intelligent because of their hirsute nature, you know, like hair growing everywhere, this is kind of the opposite. So it's a kind of a mad genius sort of effect overall, which is really interesting with the character, because the character, that I'm not saying it's him. He's not the character. He's not as shallow, obviously, as you know he portrays. Characters really shallow, to the point of, like, you know, a Seinfeld-esque sort of selfishness in a way, which is very interesting. It's kind of like the humor is observational humor, but the level of humor is very much childish. It's very spoilt and privileged, that you would imagine a child, you know, to be very sort of a spoiled child making these observations based on social privilege and selfishness and ego. Not so much ego-driven. It's really sort of it's humor gone uncomfortably awry. What I mean by uncomfortably awry, a lot of the humor has incredibly poignant today, especially social comment. So this is really lovely. I love this sort of shape here, this sort of, you know, the balance that I can achieve with this simple cartoon version of his head to create the basic shape, and then sort of balance it with this like a koala bear ear effect, you know, the side levers and the crazy long hair at the back, You know, it's beautiful to play with. He's got a lovely face. He has a lovely face. I think that's also part of the appeal of the humour, is that it's delivered from somebody who you actually like to look at. And when they have that sort of smirk, you know, and that, and they're kind of, he's kind of making these observations based on things that we've secretly thought of. You know, we're secretly Larry Davids. We're secretly selfish and self-centered and things like that. So it's a sort of a humour which, as I said, is uncomfortable, I think, because it's too close to home. You know, so it's something based on reality, but based on a reality that is very uncomfortable for us to think about. So there's a little bit of a Larry in everybody, more than the Karens. So, you know, if there's a Karen, sort of a what do they call it, white, privileged, middle class, spoilt woman, this would be, you know, almost the male equivalent. Which is very funny, because I think we're all Karens underneath. We're all sort of like petulant children in a way if things don't go right for us, you know. And sometimes, secretly in our hearts, we kind of overreact. We never voice it. Whereas Karens, I think, and Larrys have the ability to voice too loudly their objections to life. So, very, very beautiful face, and I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying this immensely. So I'm just drawing with it's not a red pencil, it's a brown pencil. Okay, so it's sort of a terracotta clay colour. All right, so that gives the drawing building up form. So, you know, a bit of light and shade, but no contrast yet. I'm going to be leaving that for the black pencil and the white pencil. So, you know, idly just look at the details, and how you respond to them is up to you, whether you want to simplify things. In many ways, I've simplified the nose. You know, it's really up to you. It's a matter of choice that you make on the fly, really, on what you want to draw and what you think is important to make the drawing have a certain amount of believability, relevance. So always keep an eye on the levels on your lining up elements, like that's yesterday. Where is it? So if you look at lining up things, right? Now that refers to perspective, obviously, because the head is turned slightly away from us. It's a 3/4 view. So think about perspective, right? Lining things up so that they don't drift all over the page, and change the proportion. So we're changing proportion, but we're doing it with some level of rules. Okay, we are applying some rules here. So the interesting thing about caricatures is that actually gives you more ability to learn about the subject, because in changing the perspective and changing the proportions and try to analyze expression and things like that is actually very valuable for learning overall. I think his eyes are going cross-eyed. can I do to fix that? Either move this one that way, or that one. That one looks alright. I think I'll move this one. So, see what I mean? There you go. You have to change these sometimes. So, keep that ability with the brown pencil. Don't commit too early until you're absolutely convinced that the perspective is working for you. It's still looking a little bit out. I'm trying to move this one up. Yeah, I think it's sort of looking all right. It's better to find that out now than later. So, we got Larry David's humour. The show is very funny, and one of my favourite characters is Susie, and and she's something to contend with. She hates Larry, and she's kind of like the, what would you call it? She's sort of like the in a Greek tragedy or Greek comic tragedy, you have the chorus that sings out. Well, she's kind of like, she performs the act of the chorus in Greek tragedy. If the chorus was, swearing at you like a sailor, and I mean like really, very, very strong, scary words. So it can be a bit confronting if you catch it out of context, But she's kind of like the, she's so weary of his shenanigans that she's unapologetically, like permanently fed up. She's a really good foil for his, because being challenged so vehemently, I think that's the pronunciation, being challenged so vehemently by her is kind of a spur in many ways to challenge, to accept the challenge, the gauntlet, and continue on the road that he was going, whether it be right or wrong. It was like, well, I wasn't going to do it until you challenged me, and now that you challenged me, now I'm definitely going to do it. So it's that sort of thing. So in many ways, it's sort of a childish aspect, but a lot of humor is based on the childish adults acting like children. One of my favorite films is It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. And in that film, all of the adults act like children. They all act like children. To the incredible effort to replicate childish tantrums and behavior and traits, character flaws and things, selfishness, to extremes. I mean, we're to a great extent, we're all selfish, obviously. We have to be. There's no such thing as people are by their very nature selfish. They have to be. Otherwise they're not human. but to this level is like an extraordinary amount. And it kind of gives you a guilty pleasure, like a guilty feeling of having to surreptitiously be Larry, to be the character, to be selfish and to make an observation based on some illogical form of logic. So a lot of humor it comes from observation, but misobserved things, right? Misobserved things. So that just leads to, A, B, D, F, P, rather than a logical procession of thoughts and ideas. Completely the opposite. And that's what makes it special in many ways. Because it is absolutely us. It is absolutely human. We are that selfish. So I'm getting in with the black pencil now. I'm just sort of helping the brown pencil out a little bit with detailing, just to make it a little bit sharper. So some of the elements, like the glasses, would be good to outline, just make them sharper, clearer, so you've got nice, cleaner lines. I'm not going over this. I will probably hit this with a brush pen later on just to help increase the contrast even more, because the black pencil, although it's black, is not as black as, say, ink. And sometimes you may need that to help out. So I was a late bloomer with regards to Seinfeld. I never saw the show until, a few years ago, after actually my first episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm. I never really saw it. I guess because of the laugh track and things, it's sort of like, to me, wasn't as funny as I found out it to be, So when I first saw it, I didn't really appreciate it, and then I had a colleague at work who would constantly play the audio of Seinfeld, and a lot of the times he just didn't get the joke, but you kind of got the joke because of the way that it's delivered, and the energy impacted, with George Costanza, for example. So it was very very interesting. So yeah, I was late to the party, but nonetheless, I did enjoy it, and if to the point where if Seinfeld was on TV now, I would definitely watch it. Even some of the gags I've seen, many times. But if they're funny, then they're worth seeing again. I guess now, by this time, all of us have sort of become a trope in and of itself. So we all have favorite Seinfeld moments. But a lot of the characters, like Kramer, for example, are not realistic. They're they're nutcases from, personal anecdotes, personal experiences that I can't really compare. I have nothing in my memory banks that compare to Kramer, or Elaine for that matter, or Seinfeld himself, But I think Larry David, the character of George Costanza, is pretty much based on Larry. So that sort of outbursts and humor that you find so funny with Costanza, with George, it's pretty much par for the course, I think, for Larry. So it's kind of it's part of that. It's part of his particular humor style. So I'm particularly interested in George Costanza in Seinfeld rather than Seinfeld or any of the other characters. I find him very interesting. So, and I think that's because I can see a similarity in the energy and the got some shine elements on the glasses which I need to establish later on as well. So when you're drawing from reference, it's very good practice to sort of think about what it is that you're drawing rather than just put down what you see without analysing it or filtering it in some form of analysis mode. So what that means is look at it in terms of light and shade and anatomy, right? Structure, head, like the head structure, the way that skin plays. Eyes are very, very, very important to look at structure, not just what you see, but think about their meaning in terms of the eye, anatomy of the eye itself. Another good practice is to not necessarily outline elements, right? Because everything doesn't have the same, everything that you draw doesn't have a general characteristic. So, for example, if you're drawing the eyes, right? The eyes are made up of an iris and a pupil. And the iris, there's a eyeball which is a glassy surface over the top, which has thickness, certainly, but the iris tends to recede down to the pupil. So it recedes down to the pupil. Okay, so the pupil is a hole, obviously, yep, because it's like a camera lens. And that gives you, that structure gives you a correctness, so irrespective of what the reference material is showing you, because, lighting is very, very particular. irrespective of that, so think about things that sometimes you may need to correct what photographs present, you know. Sometimes it just happens that way. All right, let's try to, we'll go back in a logical pattern of drawing using the black lines. So be careful with the amount of black here, because this is actually referring to grey and white hair. So you have to be a bit subtle and light with the pencil in order to make it work properly. Now I've made the ears stick out a little bit, make them bigger. Ears are things that have a beautiful story about them, beautiful shape. And there's a general sort of anatomy, physiognomy of the ear. But even within that, there is variations that are particular to the character that you're drawing. So this character here, his ears are very much very curvy, very bumpy, right? A lot of shapes within the ear, a lot of shapes. So it's not as simple as you might think. And the reason is that he has to listen. He listens a lot. Humor is based on observation. Observation is based on observing with the eyes, but also hearing things. So listening to, you know, voices and things. A lot of comedians can do very good voice impersonations because of their level of observance and recall from life. They can recall rhythms, human voice rhythms and things very well. There's a lot of observational humor, like Borat, for example, is so spookily accurate. It's hard to watch. Sacha Baron Cohen is an expert at observational comedy, and you know, his observations are really on point to a very uncomfortable level. So you know, a lot of the sketches, the situations that Larry gets into in the show are based on things that we kind of take for granted, and things that, you know, social norms and things that we put up with. And they're filtered sort of through a childish lens that explodes their importance, and makes it really funny because it's observation now based on a certain character flaw, which is his character flaw, but it's something we can channel in ourselves. We see this character flaw in ourselves, even though we don't prize it. It's not something that you'd be happy with because a lot of it is very childish. But that's how it works. So if it makes you uncomfortable, congratulations, welcome to the human race. But secretly, we are all spoiled children, and he kind of gives you permission to enjoy that aspect. So I'm just simplifying a lot of this jackets and lines here. Just very quickly get some shapes happening. All right, will do. So when you're drawing, you think about light, shade, obviously the lightness you're trying to get. But the conversation that you have with yourself in your head, just, be aware that this is going on. There's a dialogue as to what's happening, what does this mean, and listen to that dialogue. Because it's something that I think can make your work better. There's a lot of importance in the smaller observations. Like you look at this and you say, those eyebrows are going in that direction. What can I do here? Let's have a look. I'll try and I'll establish a hierarchy of thick and thin lines. Be careful with hair, as I said before. It would not be appropriate to give that a thickness. I think unless it's the style warrants it, but generally it would be ill-advised to do that, to make it too decorative. Okay. Ooh. Yeah, that'll do. Now, this is an interesting proposition here. We've got to... I might leave the glasses. I was going to do something. I might need to leave them. Let's drop into the curve of the nose and just give that a bigger, heavier line, make it stand out more a little bit. Same with the contours around the mouth here, down to the jaw, going in from thick to thin. Only do what's appropriate, I think. That should work alright. Oh, I should actually... Yeah, that's better. Bottom of the jaw here. And, of course, the ear. So I've got some... Go thick and thin. So the thick lines give it a curvy feel. So not just standing out from the background, but to give it a sort of a heavy roundness. All right, so let's fix some of these little niggling spots that are somewhat annoying. Okay, if that will work out. We'll leave that for now. So we've got brown, we've got black. Now we need to get in there with the white. So the white is not coloring in, but adding texture, right? So it's helping the contrast bringing out from the grey paper. So everything up till now is pushing the depth down towards back into the grey paper. Now we have a chance to actually build forward, bring elements forward into the space, into the light. So we'll start with this. We're also going to be using a white pen as well, like we've just used a black pen. We're going to be using a black brush. We're going to be using a white brush. So that's going to help also establishing the hierarchy and help with the texture. So articulating light and shade in a way that makes sense. All right. Yeah, looks all right. So there's an issue with this, the hairs up here. It's catching a lot of light. Quite shiny, so we'll get some help with the pen in a minute, the white pen. And I think what I'll try to do is try to carefully build up the light and shade, us creating a sort of a sculptural element to the drawing. So things that are curvy, you want to catch with some light elements, right? I'll explain this better with the pen. I think it'll be a lot clearer and stronger. So we'll do that in a second. Just want to, you know what, that pink is beginning to, sometimes when you push the white, when you draw the white over a line of brown, it tends to go pink, so it can be a little bit distracting. Yeah, it's a bit better. So I've got a nice sharp nose, a line there defining the character of the nose, and nice shiny skin texture. Right. Okay. There's quite a lot of white elements in here to remember to push or contrast or bump up their contrast a little bit to try to create their relevance. We'll do that. You'll see it happen with the brush. I just need to establish a softer gradient. I'm using a hatch line effect with the pencil strokes. It's better than, just scribbling. So give it some decorative function, some character that has a little bit of style, I guess you might call it that. To subtly build up a bit of tone. Right. We'll fix that in a minute. What else? There's a line at the very edge of the lip zone over here. There's a corresponding one at the top of the lip, a little bit softer, and around this dent in the upper lip. So I'm just going through a lot of these things. I'm going to establish a rim light on a lot of these elements as well, so I can build up a three-dimensional thing, even though it's not in the photograph. It's something that I think is helpful, will create a sense of three-dimensional properties, which is good to establish that. So I'm not colouring in, I'm building up form from the toned pencil and on the grey paper, of course. It's doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and I'm creating a contrasting tone of white. So it's interesting how to create that sculptural effect with pencil. So it's quite fast and efficient. These are white hairs over here, so already established some level of outline softly with the red, the brown pencil. So I'll help that a little bit more with just here and there. Now we need to, so there's a highlight we need to hit over there, and of course the cheekbone over here. Remember, as I said to you before, even if you can't see it in the photograph, the minute you start referring to it, it lends a level of realistic believability to the structure of the drawing, right? And let's have a look. So this is you can still see it, it's softer. Whoops, where is he? It's softer, but it's still there. So what I've done is just sort of made it a little bit harder. I've messed up there. Use that. So be careful. There you go. There's lots of wrinkles here, and I just want to underlight the wrinkles. I'm going to put a side light in to create a sense of shine over there, but I just want to try to keep a handle on the amount of highlights that I put in here, because over on this side, even though it's well illuminated, it does join into the hairline, and the hair is, important to be white. I think that's probably the most relevant tone for it. It's got grey hairs as well, but it's mostly a very pale colour. Very pale tone, not colour. So it's a tonal effect that we're after, tonal drawing. Cool. Big Adam's apple. And some finer lines in the throat. Okay, it's a little bit of a cheek. He's got a lot of cheek, really. What a cheek! Okay. All right, let's try to, let me go. Okay, let's use this. So this is opaque marker, and this is going to give us a little bit of contrasting light accents. Think about the direction of the hair and just make it up. Look at where the hair's going, how long they are, and how short they are in other parts. That'll do. Right, so I've established a line, a rim light line over on that side, and sorry, I've gone quiet again. So I have to put in the reflections back that I took out before in the eye. Seems to be okay. All right, so far so good. There's a reflection in the glass. There. I think I made a mistake there, but we'll leave it for the moment. So what I'm trying to get here is a difference between the textures of different parts of the skin. Some parts are shinier than others. So I'm not using it to outline everything. I just want to keep it a handle on that. Should I continue and let's try? Okay. So I'm going to try to give a little bit of randomness to this. The hair, just a little bit. So they say sometimes good humour, or humour that's funny, is funny because it makes us uncomfortable. And I think that's true of Borat, and certainly true of Larry David's humour. It presents a part of us, or reflects a part of us that we don't like to think about. You know, we're not selfish. We try not to be. But I think underneath we are, you know, and it's a sort of a motivation that comedians have made a lot of money on, a lot of traction with. What else have we got here? We've got a brush pen here, which is a bit softer. Might get a little bit of help with the contrast, a little bit here and there. I don't want to overdo the white of the hair, because I think it would take too much attention away from the face. And I don't want to do that. So this is a paint pen brush, so it's a little bit softer, but can build up a nice opaque quality. I've made his eyes a little bit darker too, I think. I got an impression that might help, but I think I might have messed up. Let's see, this is a bit lighter, so we'll try and okay, it's not too bad. I think what I might do with the background, if you bear with me, I might sort of make that darker. This is a different paint pen, this is a black one. So I might sort of try to cut in around some of these shapes here. The beauty about these markers is like the brush pen, they tend to dry quite flat, which is a good thing to have. I'm trying to cut in around the contours without going up to the contour lines themselves, if I can help it. So I can get a little bit of boldness to the outlines. So if right up to the line, if you were to touch the lines, of course you'd destroy the line. It would just be a colour. It blend into the background. So this background is what you call negative space. So it achieves a compositional property, lends a compositional property to the drawing, sort of anchors it on the page somewhat. This is a fun aspect of cutting in around little pencil strokes. There you go. That worked. Yay! Sometimes I go a bit crazy with the thing, and once it touches the contour, of course, it's damages the thick and thin lines that you've produced. So I'm just putting in a contrasting color. I want the face to stand out, so you could use a white pen as well. Sort of color in the negative space. Looks alright. So far, so good. Oops, careful. Don't go too close to the contour line. Again, don't go too close to the suit's contour line. That might work alright, yeah. Fingers crossed. Pretty good. Pretty good. It's one of Larry's sayings in the show. Pretty good. Oop, I lost the contour there. I'll have to bring it back. Okay, we're going to get a bigger brush in a sec. Color in this area a little bit stronger. We'll just fill out the edges of the area. And then bring in the heavy lifting. Bring in the artillery. There you go, that's good. The beauty about these pens is it does not go through the paper, so it's not like texture colors or markers. The paint actually sits on top of the paper, which is really, really good. So, I think I might be happy with that. I'm not being facetious. I think it works quite well. What's missing? Something missing. This is wrong. I can't do much about that. Once the paint pen's down, that's it. Can I maybe tone it with this? Maybe. Yeah, that'll do. So, there was something I was going to fix. Okay. Let's get up. Let's get this. So I've lost a little bit of contour here, so I just want to bring that back a little bit. That won't work. Let's try something a bit softer. See, some of the pencils are harder, which means they don't like to work so much on other pencil strokes. Alright, here we go. L A R R helps to say it. D A V I D. Larry David. There you go. This is my version of Larry David. Where's the photograph? I think I did all right. I think it does it. I mean, there's some things missing probably, but I kind of picked the right expression. I could have picked any expression. See his range of expressions. That's so funny. The one I was going to use was that, of course. And I started to thumbnail that, But then I changed my mind and I said, well, I want the eyebrows up. The eyebrows should be up because that's that typical questioning, sarcastic expression. So this is Larry David, and this is Frantz Kantor saying that I will catch you on the flip side. Bye-bye.